Hello, investors. It is Connor Bates, Associate Portfolio Manager with Revere Asset Management. Today is Friday, December 20th, 4:40 p.m. Eastern Time, coming to you with tonight's Revere Roundup Daily Market Insight video. Market state still in a short-term downtrend, although we did see a decent bounce today. And if we look at the trend gauge, market leaders, we have that under neutral with a red sub arrow, but there are just a handful of names that are just really standing out that are resisting the urge to go down. And then on the other hand, there's ones that are, violating the 50-day on volume. So mixed bag there, definitely stock pickers market. Short term, this is our 21 EMA, red arrow there, and that acted as resistance for the S&P 500 today. Medium term, S&P is, meandering right at the 50-day right now. QQQ, strong bounce off it today. And then long term, this is the 200-day moving average. The green arrow remains. So what happened today? Well, it's kind of day one of the bounce attempt after two rough days in the market. And then I think it was very notable. Some of the names that were holding up well really were strong to the upside today. And that's sometimes we talk about that for phrase beach balls underwater. So here are the final numbers: 21 over 21 list up 2.5%, 18 green, 3 red. Big 8 up 0.3%, RG8 up 1.37%. Seen a bounce back in the equal weight S&P and the equal weight Qs, both up over 1%, and an in-house GROTECTION up 0.74% on the day. Let's get into the inter-asset correlation. As always, we start with chart of the S&P 500. So as you can see, strong bounce day today and just slightly closing above the 50-day by a couple points. So want to see more confirmation, but that 21-day acting as resistance, and disregard this volume. It's skewed because of options expiration, but we're still holding above the 150-day moving average, and big reclaiming 6,000 would be very bullish, and you could argue today almost is an undercut and reclaim of that election gap. And so, potentially a false breakdown, but, still some overhead up here. So kind of just still expecting some choppy action, but, some of the indicators that we follow were extremely oversold, and I'm going to kind of go and I'll cover those actually later in the video, but seeing a bounce there. And then if we look at the weekly, closing slightly below the 10-week moving average, but still holding above the 21-week at 57.57. That's the S&P. RSP getting a nice bounce here off the 150-day. I mean, it needed a bounce. It was getting quite oversold, and but good to see it bouncing here. Stochastics trying to hook back up here, and nevertheless, I mean, this is still quite oversold. Look at the weekly here. That coincides with holding the 40-week. So this can hold above the 40-week and then, start to repair itself. Obviously, this is just a lot of messy price action here, and, maybe rallies back up in the 50-day, forms a higher low, but, just good not to see this continue to leak off. We got the Qs, relative strength here, bouncing off the 50-day, and just slightly below the 21-day. But again, this one never violated that election gap and that 500 psych level. And you could argue this 515 was a big level and kind of undercutting and reclaiming it. If we look at the weekly here, this also held the 10-week, so it looks good for now. A Mag 7 again, relative strength here, bouncing off the 21-day. Dow Jones finally got that snapback bounce, but coming into the 50-day and the declining 21, that will be key there. Mid caps bouncing off the 150-day as well. Good to see. And then, if this starts to rally up into this spot right here, I'd like to see this reclaim. But with a lot of these, the mid and small caps, with these violent moves lower, a step in the right direction is to bounce, then build a higher low and then try to go higher. That would be ideal world. Russell 2000, again, strong upside reversal off the 150-day moving average. And then, but this is still trading below that election gap up. So something to be aware of. Take a look at the weekly for IWM. And this is closing below the 20-week, but still holding above the 40-week, which is good. But, just such a choppy index, really hard to trade. And you got just better companies in the NASDAQ and the S&P 500. And if you want to find more smaller caps, you can probably find cleaner setups and individual names. ARK, this one continues to hold up really well. You have so many of these older growth names breaking out stage one basis. And, this one, obviously ARK is super volatile. And if the market's getting smoked, you'd probably expect this to be down even more. That's actually not the case in this pullback. This is putting an upside reversal on the 21 day. If you look at the weekly, this looks good, just kind of like almost a normal pullback to the top of this base, which coincides with the 10-week moving average. And this still looks great for upside. And now it's in its stage 2 advance. FFTY, again, definitely a leaders type of day. This found support at this previous top of the base, held the 50-day. We'll see, but a fair amount of the stocks that we traffic in are holding up pretty well. VIX, great to see this back closing below 20, and obviously had that huge day, up 76%. But I've said before, volatility needs a reason to stay elevated. So could have just been a scare with the Fed. And now we're not seeing continued upside there. So being back below 20 is a really good sign. The dollar, pulling back a little bit today, and it's just been a huge move off this undercut rally that we were talking about, plus that super negative short positioning wise lets that big move. But one thing I'm thinking, right, is you got this huge base. So here was a look below and fail, and right from failed moves come fast moves. Tried to break below the support, didn't. So now we could have quite the opposite, and this could be a look above and fail, right? Coming into this weekly resistance, draw that line better. Coming into this weekly resistance, and if we get back below this area, these two previous highs, that could be in just the opposite of an undercut reversal, look above and fail. And then if this came back into the lower end of the range, I would imagine that'd be positive for stocks. Gold, just continues to be weak, no relative strength, just living below the 50-day now. Gold stocks, again, even weaker, living below the 200-day. Silver, trying to get back above the 200-day, but relative weakness for sure. Bitcoin, 3-day pullback into the 21, but still obviously kind of violated this upper trend line. We trimmed this a little bit, earlier this week for had nice gains, but now this could be going into another base. It had this big base breakout, strong move up. Now it's pulling back. As long as it can build higher lows in this base, I think it looks constructive. And here, not the prettiest weekly bar, but if this just can, consolidate, let that 10-week moving average pull back, Bitcoin looks good. And we'll take a look at some of the proxies. MSTR with the super strong bounce off the 50-day today, and then Coinbase, kind of an undercut reclaim of the 50-day. And then if it can get back through this 283 level, I think that could maybe see some more upside. Bonds, super oversold, try to bounce maybe TLT again. And this coincides with rates continuing to be stronger. And that's why we've seen some carnage in some of these rate sensitive sectors, right? Real estate, home builders have been getting smoked. Biotech added to the list as well. But maybe we see rates start to come back down. We'll look at the weekly. Objectively, this is a pretty bullish weekly chart. So these continue to go higher. That could be problematic. That's the interasset correlation. One thing I did want to talk about is do a quick section on breadth, because breadth is usually the best in extreme. So I want to bring 3 different ones that I use. So first, this is the NASDAQ McClellan oscillator. And as you can see, we're getting that relief bounce today. And you can see when you look back at this indicator this year, we are in an uptrend. This still is a bull market until proven otherwise. And you can see it's got super oversold here. And this coincided with us starting to bounce. And then look at the other times. This was near the August 5th levels that marked the low. And then again over here in this April, May area when this had, negative 67 readings. And these typically led to a nice bounce. So that's one that I use. That's the NASDAQ McClellan oscillator. What we use in the tail of the tape now, the S&P 500% of stocks above the 5-day moving average. And as you can see, it hit single digits. And each time it's done this, August, correction low, April, and then other brief pullbacks. So there was certainly a lot of fear in the market. A lot of stocks were getting crushed. So that was that. That definitely was like, hey, like this is probably not time to be shorting. And then another one that I like is the percent of, this is just the percent of stocks above the 20, 50, and 200-day moving average. And you can see this was firing lowest signals all year. You can see it was at levels in this, April pullback, which led to a nice relief rally. This August panic low, and then the percent of stocks above the 20-day is actually quite lower. So we'll see if this can start to hook back up, see some more breath in the market. But certainly a lot of stocks are quite oversold. It's quite evident when you look at these. And then the last thing, what I mentioned earlier, is the seasonality. It's December 20th, and as you can see, this is here, typically leads to a strong into year end. So we'll see if that plays out. Just kind of, stacking the odds, listening to what the market's saying. But those are, I thought, 4 charts were shown for tonight's episode. Alrighty, into the tale of the tape. So, like I mentioned, the VIX down today. We're getting, not only are these breadth indicators oversold, fear and greed is an extreme fear. AAII is quite down quite a bit. And then NAM still, hovering around 80. News-wise, still have that US debt ceiling negotiations in progress. And then the PCE inflation data that came in kind of sparked the bounce this morning. Today's keys, S&P, holding above the 50-day for now and the 100-day, but, only about 3 points above the 50-day right now. The Qs holding above the 21 and 50-day, and then surviving leaders, very strong today, and I'll cover those when I get into the charts. Day count up 1, 4 days below the 8, 3 days below the 21. Basically, the action today was morning gap lower. We put the low in the first 5 minutes. We rallied up into that 59.80 before having a weak close. Sectors-wise, software, IGV, that's been a notable sector that was having a strong bounce today. And then all the spider sectors were up today. So decently positive breadth day. And you can see, especially with the RG8 up as well. In-house today, we bought GEV and Palantir, added to Google, and trimmed Tesla. So that was in-house trades today. And then the bottom line, bounce attempt on indexes, relative strength names shine. And I'll get into those right now. Alrighty, so some of the trades today. Let's talk about GEV. I like this one a lot. It's funny. So when the market corrects, you really want to be on the lookout for what names are holding up. And last night's video, we mentioned GEV as showing relative strength. And this is a really nice looking setup. So this had this huge base back in August area, and it was showing nice relative strength. And this led to a huge move as the market started to rally off the August 5th low. And then as the markets continued to be strong, this one's putting in a 6-week base. First touch of the 10-week moving average after this base breakout, closing high of the week. And on the daily, it kind of undercut the low of this base, bounced off the 50-day, reclaimed, and breaking this downtrend line. So fantastic looking setup here. We bought this today, and then great numbers in that alternative energy industry group. So this setup looks promising. Palantir, another one, markets coming down. This one just will not go lower. First sign of bounce in the market, and this one explodes higher, up 8.5% on the day, breaking this flag. We took a position in this one today, and as you can see, right off to open, broke opening range highs, and just super powerful day, closing at the high of the day. And, people are probably still complaining about how expensive this stock is, but price does not care about your opinions, and this one just continues to be arguably the best stock in the market. Google, we added to this one. We had a position, we added on to it today, pulled back to the 21 and then undercut and reclaimed this previous high. This one looks good and obviously continues to build off that quantum computing news. Obviously had a strong rally off the initial gap. First pullback to the 21, kind of starting to come out of this flag. Good action there. And then we also trimmed Tesla. Not much strength in the bounce today. Maybe this needs to visit that 21-day. And then let's take a look at the 21 over 21 list because there's a lot of strong stocks today. Lemonade was notable today, big upside reversal, getting back above the 21 day, coming against this downtrend line. Weekly, this one looks great. Well, just now into its stage 2 uptrend. Palantir, APP again, super strong. Kind of breaking this downtrend line, holding above the 21 day. You can see a lot of the stochastic on these names. They got quite a lot of room up if they want to. ALAB, again, this is another one that just didn't go down when the market was pulling back harsh. And if you didn't look at the indexes, you just looked at, ALAB, Palantir, these type of names, you would never know the market pulled back. And then this is, I'll reiterate it, is, why the phrase is beach balls underwater, because this was the first day the market started to bounce, and these ones are ballooning higher. Very strong action here. Bloom Energy, undercut reclaim of the 21 day. This one looks good. Still really nice monthly, weekly pattern here. You can just draw obviously huge range break, and this one's starting to form a flag. Let that 10-week catch up. This one definitely could be actionable. Reddit, another one that didn't go down when the market pulled back, looking to break out of this flag with the 21 day catching up. VRT showing some life back today, coming back up into the 50. Bros, fantastic action again. Flagging here after the bounce off the 21, continues to build higher lows. Deckers, super strong out of this base and continues to trend. Great relative strength. And look at a name in this retail apparel shoes. Owen Owen, huge upside reversal off the 50-day moving average today. So definitely some strength in this group. CLS bouncing off the 21 day again. If you didn't look at the indexes and you just looked at this name, you'd have no idea they pulled back. Marvel starting to starting to build higher lows here, held this gap, and it's starting to reclaim this earnings gap. So that's good to see. Team with software bouncing back today. This one's putting a nice upside reversal as well. CRDO holding the 21 day, and this continues to build this post earnings flag setup, and these numbers are fantastic. So this one looks pretty good heading into next week. Twilio, undercut and reclaim of the 21, closing high day, and this one's one of the best in this software group. Again, another ARC style name, big stage 1 base breakout, continuing higher. Covered Google, Snowflake, holding this gap low and reclaim the 21 day. Good to see. Obviously, on this earnings gap, it had that highest volume ever. And if that's from some studies, that is very notable. Avgo, just kind of consolidating, had that 2 days strong after that earnings, and now I'm starting to build higher lows. Maybe it needs these moving averages to catch up. RBRK, pulling back near that high volume close, held it, letting that 21 day catch up and kind of starting to flag here. Tesla, just pulling back. I think it's acting totally normal. It's still holding above those previous all-time highs, but not the prettiest weekly candle, but this is at a very strong move. It's nearly doubled off this initial election gap. We kind of pretty much like an EP. So as long as it holds these previous highs, I think it looks good. Maybe it needs to undercut this level, reclaim it, or just flag out a little bit, let the 10 and 21 week catch up, but still definitely a leader despite being a little down today. XPO starting to break down. This will be off the list. And that's 21 over 21 list. I covered IGV, big bounce off the 50 day, and I talked about the precedent of this for semiconductors in 2023 on a video a while back. And, it's still kind of, you can see semiconductors broke out of that base here, and then IGV, very similar, right? So this is still definitely a top focus sector for us. Let's take a look at NVIDIA too, because this is starting to come back. This held the 150-day moving average, which is good to see. Still has this 50 and 21 days overhead, but this can reclaim 140. It could be taken back off to the races. Definitely oversold, seeing this RS line come back to life. Stochastic hooking back up. And if you look at the weekly, this weekly looks pretty good. So it held the 21 week below the 10 week, but overall looks pretty good. And it, everyone everyone can see this head and shoulders. And sometimes let's draw this. Everyone can see this head and shoulders and they were talking about it, but sometimes fouled head and shoulder top breakdowns can be explosive upside setups. And you can see kind of try to break this neckline, didn't, reclaiming it. So again, that saying, from fouled moves come fast moves. So be on the lookout if this starts to reclaim 140, gets back to moving averages. That could be strong. So yeah, that's the 21 over 21 list and some names. I think that is going to wrap it. As always, love to hear from you guys. You can reach out to me. My email is connor@revereasset.com, and or you can always reach out to Dan or Don at revereasset.com. Phone is 855 Real Wealth. That is 855-732-5932. And if you're ever interested in becoming a client, please reach out. You can reach out to Dan and he can tell you everything you want to know and does the onboarding. So that is going to wrap it for Friday, December 20th, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. This is Connor Bates with Revere Asset Management, telling it like it is. Thank you guys for watching and have a good weekend.